We're back to the Neil Haley Show and also the Media Giant Effect. And I'm excited to welcome to the show the author of How to Retire and Not Die, Gary Sirak. Gary, how are you? And you know what? When we think about the stories, and we don't want to die. And now more than ever, we're learning people are living a lot longer, that they really have to. Planning for retirement is not a 10-year process. It could be a 30, 40-year process. You know, Gary, that's the surprising factor, and how we have to be healthy. We have to do so many different things than, my generations, my parents, and the generation before that ever thought of retirement.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. I was thinking of the lyrics from The Who, I want to die before I get old. And Pete Townsend wrote that song back in 1970. And I thought, those lyrics always landed with me. I said, who, what's old? Well, old has gotten older and older and older. I mean, I think about that, and people don't understand. They can be in a plan an extra 30, 40 years. And that's really legit. My actuaries and my insurance companies tell me some of my policies now go to 120, Neil. I mean, I haven't seen anybody live that long, but I had a client go to 103. But it's kind of amazing to me, how our life expectancy is extended. And I don't see that changing. In fact, medical science and all the stuff that's happening kind of is extending us even longer. So I look at this and I say, that's a bunch of time to fill. How do you fill it? It's tricky.
You're either going to fill it enjoying your life, or living in a nursing home or an assisted living away from everyone. It's because that's how important it is in the planning process. But we found out something from your own research, like we should have Gary Sirak research from you talking to so many people, that you've built a research, or at least a small pool of people that you're polling, that continuing to work part-time makes a person better off after they retire than quitting cold turkey. Why is that?
Well, it goes back to structure, Neil, having some structure, knowing that you're going to be doing something part-time, however days a week. It could be 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 1 day a week, but knowing that you have a structure. And I think that's critically important. Community is huge. People don't realize they lose their community, the people they've known for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, whatever it is, their time frame. They become friends, maybe not great friends, but friends, social friends. You talk, their kids, their grandchildren, all that stuff. All of a sudden that's gone. And that's really dramatic. So I am a huge fan of gradually working to not working, if you wish to do that. And plenty of my clients keep working. I mean, I had someone tell me the other day, he said, yeah, I'll work till I'm about 85. I said, okay, that's pretty long. And his wife said, nah, he'll just die at his desk. And I said, okay. And he says, yeah, I probably will. I mean, it's kind of nonchalant, but pretty legit, Neil. I look at so many friends. I'll give you a great story. Last week, I had a lady come in. She is the manager of a large department store. And she sat down with her husband. She said, I don't know if we can retire. I got your name from somebody, so I was referred to you. And I said, thank you, and all that stuff. I said, so tell me what you're thinking. And she said, I'm thinking that I really hate my job. I've been doing it a very long time. I had to close the store last night, 11:30, because the people who were supposed to close it didn't show up for work. And she said, I just don't want to do this anymore. I said, but I make a lot of money. I said, well, define a lot of money. And she did. And I said, yeah, you make a lot of money. And I said, how are you doing financially? He said, well, I'm a little concerned because I really don't want to work anymore, but can I make it financially? So we played around with the numbers. And I said, the only way in the world you can make it financially is you need to get a part-time job. And she put on the biggest smile and she said, so if I work part-time, I could actually quit this job. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, how much money do I need to make? I said, well, maybe if you make 20 grand, 30 grand a year. And she said, oh, I could do that easy. I said, then there's no reason for you not to pull the trigger. And she said, well, my bonus comes in May. I'm going to wait for my bonus and then I'm done. And I said, cool. So they were so excited, Neil. I mean, her husband just looked at me and says, you have no idea. We're walking out the door. He said, I can't begin to tell you how happy you made my wife. So later that week, I got an email from her on Facebook message or something, and she said, I just have to tell you, I have had the biggest smile on my face since I was at your office. I am going to do what we talked about, and I can't wait, and just want to say thank you. She said, I've slept better the last 3 nights than I've slept in the last year.
See, that's the thing, and that's the stories. We're going to talk about more of those stories. And that's one working because she has to work, at least to keep up with that, but not have to burn herself out. But other stories of people you're seeing specifically enough that they needed to keep working part-time because it just part of their lifestyle. That it's part of them. They just don't know how to keep busy doing nothing. Right? That's
It's
the
in their
problem.
DNA, Neil. It's in their DNA. A friend of mine, one of my best friends in the whole world, we had lunch last week because it was his first official day of semi-retirement. He's now working 2 days a week, about 6 hours, 2 days a week, and the other 3 days in the middle of the week. So he goes in on Monday, he goes in on Friday. I said, why didn't you pick one of those other days so you take long weekends? He said, yeah, I should have done that. I said, well, can you fix it? He said, I don't know if I can or not. He said, I kind of already made this up. I said, okay. I said, well, shortly you'll be able to fix it. So anyway, he goes in and does his job 2 days a week, and that's it. And I said, okay, now the key is how do you fill the other 3 days? And he said, you know, Gary, that's why we're having lunch. He said, I'll buy, you help. I said, okay. So we sat down and we mapped out all the different things that he could do for those 3 days. And Neil, we probably had a list of 15, 20 items. I mean, exercising. He likes to swim, so he's going to start swimming at the Y. Just all kinds of, and there's a volunteer thing that he's thought about doing for years that he's never done. But one of the things that really struck me is he's an avid reader. And I said, have you ever thought about joining a book club? And he said, I've never had time. I said, well, now you have time. And he said, well, where would I find out? I said, well, check with the library. They're big on books. And he laughed. And I said, they do a lot of book stuff. I said, they would know. So sure enough, he checks with the library. There's a book club that'll fit exactly the segment of reading. He likes to do historical fiction. They have a book club for that. And he said, well, that's cool. And he said, I'll meet like 12, 15 new people. I said, yeah, you only have book discussions, you're during coffee, and you meet people you never knew. Those are kind of cool things, Neil, but that's what we came up with over lunch. And the idea that he's working is really valuable because he's got that community again. So he's got a community there, and it gives him time to develop his new community. And that's what I think really is so important.
Community is such an important thing. Either you have a community and work, you're getting to talk to a lot of people, you're not, but if you're stuck in a specific situation where you're not interacting, you're watching the television, or you're interacting with the same person all the time and not getting a break from that person, it can become really draining. And it can be draining that you don't feel like you're part of society anymore, that you are successful. I think the great movement that's happening with the baby boomer slash even Gen X, my age movement, meaning that they're going to continue to work a lot longer than any other populations ever in retirement. And the reason is it's going to happen is because they're going to live longer. And secondly, because they have kind of chosen to do, if they want to continue to work, they really love what they're doing and they don't want to stop. And society's not going to look down at them anymore. That's the thing.
Well, one thing that's really happened is the work ethic has changed, and the fact that you're willing to go to work and do what you're supposed to do and show up when you're supposed to show up is a very big deal. And most of my employers that I work with are having terrible times with people calling off and stuff. But what he told me is, he said, you know, what's really unique, he said, and I'm not trying to throw, I'm not trying to slam anyone, he said, but there's a segment of my population, he said, older, they never do that. He said, Gary, they show up every day, they have a different thought process of what this is about. And he said, it's really refreshing. He said, so I'm kind of slanting hiring more of that generation than the other generation because I have more stability. And I thought, well, that's an interesting flip, because usually they've been trying to get rid of us because as we get older, they say,
It's not going to happen anymore. It's not happening because we are now the biggest population in the United States, meaning I can't believe I'm saying we, I'm 50. So I'm not there yet, Gary, but I'll soon be there. At least in that process of 50 and older than any population in the United States, because we're not growing as a country. The only thing is, again, is Latinx is the population that's growing the largest. So people need to learn to speak Spanish very soon.
Mhm.
But everybody else, it's dying. It's not, there's no growth. There's no thing. And if people don't die and they read your book and retire and not die, then we're going to be in better shape. But the thing that's happening that's concerning the healthcare industry is health. That yes, older populations are living longer, but they're being in assisted livings, nursing homes, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's really, really a bad thing. So you need to educate them that don't just work to retire
Yeah.
in a way to retire. Keep working, keep that mind going. Because isn't it important to keep your mind going? Is that there's such research out there about
Oh,
keeping that?
Neil, is huge, and that's one thing. Community is important, but using your brain is a big deal, and way more. I have a client of mine. He just retired, and he's going to watch 22 years of NCIS. That's his retirement, and he was very serious. He said, when I retired, they met in my office. We sat in the office, he and his wife, and I said, financially they're fine. I said, so what are you going to retire? He says, oh, I have it all figured out. I'm going to watch 22 seasons of NCIS. I've never gotten to watch it, and I'm really excited. And he said, and there's all these spin-off ones. He said, I could do this for a year. And I looked at his wife, and she's just shaking her head. And the other thing about this guy is he likes chocolate chip cookies. He's a very good baker, and he eats his own chocolate chip cookies. And I'm thinking, this is not a good scenario. 2 months later, I see them at a restaurant, and he's definitely been eating his chocolate chip cookies, and he just looked heavier. And I said, so how's it going? He said, oh my God. He said, I'm having such a good time watching NCIS. And I just looked at his wife, and she's just shaking her head.
Oh boy.
I said, so what are you doing besides that? And he says, no, that's what I've been doing. And I said, okay, so you're kind of sitting on a couch watching NCIS. He said, oh no, I have a lounge chair. I mean, he just was clueless. You got to have something else in your life. He wasn't using, this is a man that ran a very successful national sales program for a company. I mean, this guy made this company millions and millions and millions. I have no idea how much he made it, but it was a lot because they paid him well. And here he is sitting on a couch vegging. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not what I expected you to do in retirement. And if you do this, this is not going to turn out the way you think.
Yes, you'll end up somewhere else. And then once your health goes down, it's over.
Yeah.
And the older you get, your health goes down, or you break your hip or different things. That's why you have to stay active and keep going. Where can people purchase your book? Such great stories. Again, do not, I think that if society's looking at a population that's not going to quit, they're going to keep working and they'll work well, hire older people. I think that's going to be the thing. And maybe that discrimination against the elderly is going to end with this new movement. Best place.
Amazon is good, and GarySirak.com. Both of those work well. If they get to my website and they order it off my website, I will sign the book for them personally and make it to whoever they want it made to, if it's a gift. By the way, Neil, the biggest thing that happened, I was going to tell you this, Christmas, we sold more books than we've ever sold, and almost all of them were presents for people who are about to retire. It was really cool. I mean, I would get emails from me, hey, this guy's going to retire, please sign this book. One guy bought 10 books for 10 people that were all in retirement. I thought, that's a really good present. I'm a little self-serving, but it's a pretty good present for someone who doesn't have it figured out. So
we appreciate it, Gary. Great stuff, man.
Hey,
All
Neil,
right.
thank you.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.